Okay, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, different parts of the world you're from. So I want to thank you all for joining us. This is an exceptional webinar, really, and it's really glad to have Dr. R. Natarajan. Everybody in the world knows him. Okay, so don't even really have to introduce him. Everybody knows what a distinguished career he has had. As the former director of IIT Madras several years ago, as the former chairman of the Central Field Research Institute, as a former vice chairman of National Academy of Engineering, and most importantly, as the former chairman of the All India Council of Technical Education. So when I was first, I think this was in 2007, when a group of us, including Hans Feuer from IFES and GEDC, I think that was around the time IFES GEDC was actually formed, and we were involved in that, and Dr. Natarajan also was involved in the early stages of formation of IFES and GEDC. And there were a group of us who were really concerned, and we still are concerned about the quality of engineering education around the world. And some of us wanted to focus a little more on the quality of engineering education in India. And so we started, doing some things and interacting, and I myself being in the United States, and so many of us in the United States, we said, okay, let's maybe build a bridge between engineering educators around the world, and including particularly USA, and engineering educators in India. And in that search to build the bridge, we were looking for the best possible architect in India to help us build the bridge. And everywhere I went, people said, yes, you have to talk to Dr. Natarajan. You have to talk to Dr. Natarajan. Go and talk to Dr. Natarajan. He is the one who understands engineering education in India, and he is the best person to work with you to build this bridge, the global bridge between engineering education in India and the rest of the world. So that was my first introduction, and then soon after that, I went and met him in his beautiful house, and we had a long conversation. And even today, we continue to interact with each other as we all together work to improve the engineering education in the world. And especially in my case, I have moved back to India now and focusing on the engineering education in India. So we have some really outstanding people in the audience also today. I will be having some of you jump into the conversation. It's a very, very important topic that Dr. Natarajan has chosen to talk to us about. So once he is done with his presentation, I will be pulling in a few of you from the audience into the panel and get some of your thoughts. So please, be alert, okay? Don't fall asleep or anything. I don't think you will, but we like your opinions. Let's have a discussion on this. That's very important. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Dr. Natarajan. You can put it on full screen mode, and off you go.
Yes, Krishna, thank you. Yeah, full screen mode now.
Yep, you can see your thing. Yep, please go ahead.
Okay, let me. Right. I have chosen today to talk to all of you about the role, relevance, and significance of liberal arts studies. In particular, the role of liberal arts studies relative to STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Yeah, here is the outline of presentation in a brief discussion. First question we ask is, are liberal arts degrees relatively worthless? Because there is a point of view that they don't prepare you for a profession and therefore they are relatively worthless. Let us discuss that. And the value of a college education in general, the principal requirements of societies to study and master different disciplines. And Fareed Zakaria, he wrote a book a couple of years ago in defense of a liberal education. I'll be quoting a few ideas from there. Liberal, from the word liberalis, meaning freedom. It is not the opposite of conservative. And Steve Jobs famously said that technology plus liberal education is a winning combination which will make the heart sing, that's as he put it. What is the value of an education that does not explicitly set out to prepare students for a profession? And STEM education, it is pointed out, it is education that simply equips people to play an appropriate role in the economy. And the combined opinion of many tech moguls is that we don't need more step majors. We need more step majors with liberal arts training or background. And we'll look at a general list of the skills that students develop through this type of education. And the progression from STEM, many acronyms here, STEM to STEAM to STREAM and STEM. The key component of STEM and STEAM is integration. STEAM embraces the 4 C's identified as essential in 21st century education, namely creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, and communication. We have had a new education policy in India which says that a liberal arts education enables one to truly develop both sides of the brain, the creative as well as the analytical. In conclusion, I point out that while STEM prepares students for livelihood, STEAM prepares them for life. While STEM is about hard skills, STEAM is about, in addition, soft skills, which one educator has called vital skills. Let us take a look at that. First, let me start with the premise that in the contemporary era of big data and some STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, there are some doubts which have been expressed whether these STEM degrees are relatively worthless. A question often asked is, what is someone with a degree in English literature, for example, going to do with it besides teach? More than a decade ago, there was a survey and an article titled, "What Can I Do with My Liberal Arts Degree?" which started with, what are you going to do with a degree in that? Do you want to be a teacher? So in this context, it is useful to remember what Bernard Shaw said, those who can do, those who cannot teach. We are all teachers, and since then, private and public efforts to enhance STEM education have given rise to new concerns about the value of liberal arts education, as well as arguments about why it is incredibly valuable even to people going into STEM fields. Valerie Strauss, who is a Washington Post columnist, she refers to a recent book by George Anders, which is entitled, "You Can Do Anything, the Surprising Power of a Useless Liberal Arts Education." Cynical indeed. Yet fewer students are studying the liberal arts than they did a few years ago. A recent study showed that the number of bachelor's degrees in the humanities that were earned in 2015, the last year at that time for which there was data available, was down nearly 10% from 3 years earlier. Therefore, the population studying liberal arts was going down. The value of a college education has long been debated. Some question an education that does not explicitly provide training or education in a job skill. This is a criticism aimed particularly at the humanities and social sciences, while others push back on the opposite side of the spectrum, noting that employers increasingly are seeking the problem-solving and critical thinking abilities that these majors bring to their jobs. Yet there are more important reasons for studying subjects within the humanities, such as philosophy, history, literature, religion, art, music, and language. And it is cautioned that we ignore them at our own peril. Liberal arts education is a cohesive collection of experiences, each providing its own contribution to the enlightenment of the scholar. Typically, it involves the study of the natural sciences, which is considered to include mathematics, the social sciences, and the humanities. Educational historians have pondered over the principal requirements of societies to study and master different disciplines at different points of time. When engineering products and services were the ingredients of technological progress, as it is now, it was necessary for students to study STEM subjects. When the standard of living attained a stage when leisure was available in good measure, then liberal arts studies could be pursued. This is the argument that they propose. Yet, even within the liberal arts, areas such as economics or neuroscience continues to grow. Interest in humanistic topics is moving in the opposite direction. Many assert the primacy of the STEM fields, while for humanistic studies, politicians belittle them and parents urge their children to avoid them. I'll point out a couple of important points here from Zacaria's book. Many defenders of the humanities emphasize the pragmatic or practical value of studying the humanities disciplines. Articles and studies describe how employers seek graduates. They look to employ graduates who can think critically and write clearly. Through studying the humanities, one has the opportunity to get to know oneself and others better. This is the emotional quotient part of it. The opportunity to become better able to understand and grapple with complex moral issues, ethical issues. Fareed Zakaria, a columnist for the Washington Post, and he's the host of Fareed Zakaria GPS, Global Public Square on CNN. Each week he comes and makes a presentation. He wrote the book a couple of years ago in defense of a liberal education. He has written, public officials have cautioned against pursuing degrees like art and history, which are seen as expensive luxuries in today's world. He also points out that Republicans, particularly some governors, want to go several steps further and defund these kinds of majors. Their contention is that liberal education is irrelevant and technical training is the new path forward. It is the only way, we are told, to ensure that Americans survive in an age defined by technology and shaped by global competition. This has implications for Indian engineering education also. I'll point them out later on. In America today, liberal, more often than not, brings to mind the meaning opposite to conservative, liberal versus conservative, particularly in the liberal versus conservative argument. But the liberal in liberal arts and liberal education does not stand in contrast to conservative. Rather, it is pointed out that it derives from the Latin liberalis, associated with the meaning of freedom. Liberal not as opposed to conservative, but as free in contrast to imprisoned, subjugated, or incarcerated. Therefore, the word liberal and liberal arts and liberal education does not refer to the opposite of conservative. It refers to free, the opposite of constrained and subjugated, and education for free citizens. I'll just do this. 1 second. Okay. The second part of the word, the phrase liberal arts, today does not refer to the arts, even the humanities. It is a broader concept. In fact, in phrases like liberal arts core or liberal arts education, the word arts is meant to encompass the humanities and the social sciences. The phrase liberal education does not refer to a curriculum that contrasts with a conservative education. What it refers to is a curriculum designed to provide students with the knowledge and abilities to become successful, productive members of a free society with the implications of economic development. What it does is to teach them how to do the following things: think critically, communicate clearly, analyze and solve complex problems, appreciate others, understand the physical world, and be prepared to learn continuously so that they can work with others and on their own to meet the challenges of the future. The future is going to be so much more different from the present in terms of the knowledge and skills and attitudes that we provide to the students, that we need a new kind of innovative thinking, and that, it is pointed out, is enabled by liberal arts education. A recent study by the Center on Education and Workforce that showed that while liberal arts college graduates may be disadvantaged in starting salary, which seems to be very important for young graduates, but it changes considerably over their careers. 2014 study, it showed that a third of Fortune 500 CEOs have liberal arts degrees. That is a large proportion. I give an Indian example. The chairman of Ashok Leyland, which is an auto major, is an English literature grad. When I was a director of IIT, I invited him to deliver a lecture to our students, and I was surprised to find that he was not a technical person. The recent public discourse on the liberal arts question, it points out that the STEM education provides directly the opportunities for students for a profession, whereas liberal arts does not do it. Even the liberal arts institutions themselves are left to question their own purpose to both students and to society as a whole. In his 2014 Sarah Lawrence College commencement address, journalist Fareed Zakaria, he jokingly summarized the current mood, telling students, "You are graduating at an interesting moment in history when the liberal arts are honestly not very cool. You all know that you're supposed to be doing what you're supposed to be doing these days, study computer science, code at night, start a company. And what you're not supposed to do is to get a liberal arts education. In an age when technology and globalization dominate our economy and our personal lives, what is the role of the liberal arts university?" he asked. And Steve Jobs, he famously said in 2010, "It is in Apple's DNA that technology alone is not enough. It is technology married with liberal arts, married with the humanities, that yields the results that make our hearts sing." The Association of American Colleges and Universities defines liberal arts education as one that empowers individuals and prepares them to deal with complexity, diversity, and change, developing in students a sense of social responsibility, strong intellectual and practical skills that span all major fields of study, and the demonstrated ability to apply knowledge and skills in real-world settings, the real world in which we work and live. The late Yale president Giamatti told freshmen in a lecture entitled "The Earthly Use of a Liberal Education," if there is a single term to describe the education that can spark a lifelong love of learning, he said, it is the term liberal education. For Giamatti, the earthly use of liberal education, as he elegantly and poignantly described it, is not defined by the content or by the subject matter of a course of study. Studying a liberal arts subject, he stressed, is not necessarily to acquire a liberal education unless one studies these and allied subjects in a spirit that seeks no immediate sequel, that is independent of a profession's advantage. In other words, liberal arts education is learning for its own sake, and it does not set out to prepare students for a specific career. This is a point that critics debate today. What is the value of an education that does not explicitly set out to prepare students for a profession? Again, in his book, In Defense of a Liberal Education, Zakaria traces differing views on the value of liberal education throughout history. He attributes our modern day concerns to the increasing needs of technology and to globalization. He explains, everyone is talking about skills-based, I'm not able to see the rest of the thing. One second. Yeah, now I can. Jimmy? Everyone is talking about skills-based learning. Politicians, business people, and even many education see it as the only way for the nation to stay competitive. Over the last several years, liberal arts subjects such as anthropology and art history have become particularly vulnerable in public debates. In his 2014 book, Beyond the University, Why Liberal Education Matters, Wesleyan University President Michael Roth, he tracks the latest debate with a historian's objective stance. But for him, the current debate hinges on a new sort of criticism, one that calls for an education that simply equips people, equips people to play an appropriate role in the economy. I'm having a little bit of a problem here. Sorry, okay. Recent data suggests that the opposite is true. Liberal arts graduates are eminently employable, it is stated. In the last several months, a number of tech moguls have publicly come out in support of liberal arts graduates. A slew of recent articles point out that useless liberal arts degree has become tech's hottest ticket, according to Forbes. And these technology leaders, they point out that we don't need more STEM majors. We need more STEM majors with liberal arts training or background. The ability to draw from other disciplines produces better scientists, it is pointed out in a Washington Post article. And STEM studies starts with liberal arts, says a Forbes magazine article. There are two major themes which come out of these articles. The first is that STEM is valuable, very valuable, but STEM students need to have a broader base of skills outside that specialization to make them more valuable and desirable in the workforce. So STEM plus a broad set of skills outside that specialization. Secondly, related to pre-professional degrees, preparation for the profession, it is the argument that students are putting all their eggs in one basket, whereas competence in the broad liberal arts means more transferable skills and greater freedom in the workforce. It appears that if there is one point on which both critics and defenders agree, that it is that liberal arts education is broad. For some, it is too broad. It is, in fact, this broad and unabashed interest in all areas of knowledge that has always set it apart from other educational approaches. The breadth of liberal education extends from the idea that, as the Victorian scholar Cardinal Newman explained, all branches of knowledge are connected together. They complete, correct, balance each other. In the idea of a university that he wrote, he advocated for a kind of education that encouraged students to look outside that areas of expertise. Bringing various disciplines together in a university provides access that access these opportunities for students. They cannot pursue obviously every subject which is open to them. They will be the gainers, however, by living among those and under those who represent the whole circle. That is the advantage of a university. This philosophy remains at the heart of the idea of liberal arts institutions, where learning happens in any number of disparate ways, where creativity and analysis are not at opposite ends of a spectrum, where rationality and feeling are not mutually exclusive. It is claimed that we go in for automation of the routine stuff, the more we create a constant low-level hum of digital connectivity, human judgment becomes very important. Some might say that this criticism comes from the notion that STEM subjects prepare students more for direct workplace-related scenarios, the employability that people are worried about, neglecting the fact that humanities provide exceptionally important and applicable skills such as critical thinking and problem solving. However, one can certainly not deny the value of completing education in a subject that is causally related to a field of work. We cannot underestimate the importance of what can be learned through humanity. So both are important. Here is a general list of skills that students develop through this type of education: research and information retrieval, analytical thinking, creative thinking, writing and speaking, foreign languages and cross-cultural knowledge, effective with ambiguity, the ability to deal with ambiguity, learning and synthesizing new ideas, and most importantly, ethics. Let me trace now their progression from a series of new acronyms: STEM to STEAM to STREAM and STEM subjects. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. STEM, of course, does not encompass all human knowledge, which is why some educators believe that the best course of action is to add an A to the acronym for the arts and turn it into STEAM. STEAM standing for science, technology, engineering, arts, and maths. Some extend STEAM even further to become STREAM with an R for reading and writing. Others extend STEM to lead to STEM, with that double M at the end, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and medicine. It is worthwhile pointing out that at least a couple of Indian institutes of technology in India have added medicine to the repertoire of studies. They offer degrees, undergraduate degrees, postgraduate degrees, in medicine even. So that is the height of interdisciplinarity, I believe. The key component of STEM and STEAM, why they are important is because of integration. Instead of teaching disciplines in independent subject silos, the lessons are well-rounded, project and inquiry-based. Project-based learning is extremely important now, with a focus on interdisciplinary learning. Interdisciplinary is the new buzzword in India with the new education policy. STEM and STEAM align with the way we work and problem solve in our daily lives. It is pointed out that the addition of arts to STEM to create STEAM is about incorporating creative thinking and applied arts in the real situations. In other words, STEM and STEAM reflect real life, the environment, the ecosystem in which we live and practice our professions. STEAM embraces the 4 C's which are identified as essential in 21st century education, the 21st century skills: creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, and communication. STEM is already itself an interdisciplinary way to teach scientific subjects. Instead of having students learn about science, math, and technology separately, STEM and STEAM involve them in complex projects that require the application of skills and knowledge from all of them at once, which is closer to how they will in the future use their abilities in their real jobs. It is pointed out that education in general and engineering education should prepare students not only for the current set of jobs and employability, but also to deal with jobs which don't yet exist and that are in the pipeline. In the Indian context, we came up with the National Education Policy 2020. They had been working on it for a couple of years. In that document, it is pointed out that a liberal arts education enables one to truly develop both sides of the brain, the creative as well as the analytical. Recently, a slew of new liberal arts universities have been established in the recent past in India over the past 3 or 4 years. And here I gave a typical list. There are many more of these, but this is a typical list of universities you seem to have done well. They attract graduates, and they also provide for employability of these graduates. Not in the same technology areas, but in more general set of areas. It is very interesting that most of these have been promoted by groups of private donors. The central government has recently established a number of IITs, Indian Institute of Technology, National Institutes of Technology, and Indian Institute of Information Technologies, all of which deal mainly with STEM areas. And they have also set up a few new IIMs and central universities. But most of the liberal arts universities are in the private sector. So let me conclude. It may be said that while STEM prepares students for livelihood, STEAM prepares them for life. Difference of life from livelihood. While STEM is about hard skills, the technology skills, STEAM is about, in addition, I must point out it is in addition, soft skills, which one educator prefers to call vital skills. Vital skills rather than soft skills. So very important, vital for a person to succeed in both education as well as in the economy. Incorporating liberal arts subjects into professional education will enable professionals to be good human beings, which is very important. They're not only good professionals, but also good human beings with values, both human values as well as professional values. So what have I tried to say over the past half an hour? It is to say that liberal education complements, liberal arts education complements STEM subjects to produce well-rounded graduates and professionals who will serve both the economic requirements, as well as requirements which deal with, for example, the environmental issues, the climate change issues, and so on, so that the value of engineering to humanity can be much more significant. So this is what I have tried to point out. And let me close here, Krishna. And if there is any discussion.
Okay, wonderful, great. So, so as I said in the beginning, we are here to have a little discussion. Okay, so we have set aside significant amount of time for discussion because this is an extremely important topic, and we have a global audience, and clearly, this may or may not what we presented in this series of slides may or may not be entirely representative of some other countries. So we would like the other countries also, people from around the world, to come in and express their opinions. Please send a text message if you want to participate in the discussion. I can always unmute you, and then you can actually then say your piece. So that's, and I see several leaders of engineering education, which are in India also in the group. But by far, I think obviously because of the fact that IFES and GEDC and IUCE are organizations of engineering institutions, most of us here are are biased towards an engineering degrees. But I think the fact that that the recent education policy in India is coming out very strong and loud about the importance of holistic and multidisciplinary education. What Dr. Natarajan puts on the table is very relevant for us all to be thinking actively about these issues. So, so please put the text message. It's difficult for me to know which of you is interested in actually being part of the panel. So please text, and I will find a way to get you in. Okay, so so we have several people here who are have some interesting questions. We have Professor Venkateswar Rao from California, actually, originally from India. I'm going to see. Would you like to talk? I mean, you have a good. I can read out what you said, but you can unmute yourself, Vemuri, and say your piece if you want to. Would you like to do that? And unmute yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I really appreciated the presentation. It was very well done. And I completely agree with what Professor Natarajan was telling. But I have a couple of questions. Actually, one observation and one question. The question is, in the technologically intensive universities in India like IITs, NITs, IIITs, and so forth, is there any effort going on to include some liberal arts component in their otherwise technically intensive curriculum?
Shall I answer this question?
Yes, please.
Professor Vemuri, even though the name is the Institute of Technology, we have full-fledged science departments, physics, chemistry, mathematics, and at the moment even biotechnology, but also humanities and social sciences, including recently introduced economics departments offering bachelor's, master's, and PhD programs. One of the good things about the IIT system is that these are not supporting departments as they are in many engineering colleges. They are full-fledged departments with their own importance, with their own funding and equal funding. Funding is distributed to all the departments in equal measure. They are not support departments. They're all, full-fledged departments. And therefore, they have a right to exist. They have the right to do their own thing.
Okay.
Thank
Great.
you.
So thank you for that question and the comment. Of course, we have a very distinguished panelist here with us, Dr. Michael Milligan, who is, everybody knows, is the director and CEO of ABET. And he would like to make a few comments. Come in, Michael.
Yes,
yourself.
okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, we can hear you. What happened? You have to unmute yourself again. I think something happened when you spoke. There you go. Yeah, we're all
Am I
set.
okay now? Okay. Well, first of all, I apologize for that, but I really couldn't agree more with the context and the message in your presentation. So thanks so much for doing that. I think now more than ever, having students exposed to liberal education is critically important. It helps them become good problem solvers, think critically, as you pointed out. But I think more importantly, if people really do want to have an impact, a greater impact in the world, whether it's on their own careers or on dealing with sustainability issues and so on and so forth, they need to have different ways to think, and they need to have different ways to engage. And I think a liberal arts, education really helps in that regard. I think in many ways not having it is a career limiter, and I think that's maybe one thing we can talk to students about. If students really want to progress in their careers and accept more levels of responsibility, have a greater span of control with respect to projects and so forth, they really need more than just their specialty education. They need to have much more broader experiences. So again, I think we really need to kind of promote that with our students. Thanks again. This is a great discussion.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, great. Thank you, Michael. I'm going to go to a gentleman who has put up significant amount of text. This is Dr. Hoy Martin Hoberg. I'm going to unmute you, sir. Would you like to speak for yourself rather than my read out what you said? Dr. Hoberg? Yeah, come in.
Yes, are you hearing me? I'm coming from Europe, and I'm involved in FEANI, the Federation in Europe for Engineering Associations. And I wonder whether this is particular, if I understood correctly, that the strong tendency or the strong interest of young people into STEM programs, could that be particularly be the case in Asia? Because here in Europe is really the other way around, that we are in urgent need for more STEM students, but most of the students rather choose humanities, languages, and other subjects.
It's true in India that technology and engineering are the preferred options for many students, most of the students, essentially because of the reason that it enhances their employability, and technology is technology companies are very much in the ascending role, particularly information technology, IT. And at the moment, there are new areas relating to IT, namely artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so on. Because of the better employment opportunities available in these areas, more and more students are looking to study engineering. There's a huge demand for engineering and engineering colleges. We have about 4,000 engineering colleges in the country, which is under the All India Council for Technical Education. And the central government is also starting more and more independent higher technological institutions, like I pointed out, the IITs and the NITs. At the moment, it is on the ascendancy. But it is also true that because of the fact that technology is moving towards from hard areas of technology into softer areas, the unemployment is increasing in even conventional branches of engineering, like mechanical engineering. There is at the moment a tendency for many of the engineering colleges to avoid offering mechanical engineering programs and going into information technology and connected areas. So this change within the technology discipline, technology areas is happening. However, the general tendency is for students to opt for engineering and technology.
May I add one more question?
Sure.
How is it with female students? Because we observed, we try desperately to get young women more interested into STEM subjects, but the only subject they really like in there is medicine, studying medicine. And with engineering topics, it is a little bit like you mentioned, that the softer they become, the more interested women are. For example, in civil engineering, women are interested in natural river streaming and all these kind of and flood protection, but not so much into hard subjects like hydropower, for example. What's your observation with female students?
It's interesting that you should ask this question. The tendency in India at the moment is diversity is increasing, particularly in terms of women entering engineering, not only in the softer subjects like electronics, electrical engineering, and computer science and information technology, but the job availability, particularly because the jobs are gender neutral in many of these areas. And again, women, more and more women are, getting higher education, pre-professional education. Therefore, there is a great deal of demand by girl students. And if you look at the proportion of women graduates entering the employment streams, it is also on the rise. Therefore, the situation is, I believe, different from what you are talking about.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let us expand this discussion a little bit about the global differences. I think I might want to go back to Dr. Michael Milligan and make a comment on this diversity issue. Are women more likely to go into liberal arts and other parts of the world, whereas in India, they're moving more towards the technical fields? Is that something that's observed? And what do you think, Michael? Is that the diversity issue and liberal arts issue?
Well, I don't know. Can you hear me okay, Krishna? Yeah. I don't know that we don't really track that type of information, that kind of data. I just anecdotally from what I see is I think it's a challenge everywhere to get more diversity, gender diversity specifically in the STEM fields. I think, this next generation shows a lot of promise because, I always like the opportunity to talk about what's the impact that these graduates will have. And these are far-reaching global personal impacts in terms of basically saving our planet. And so I think as a result, where there's much more enthusiasm across the board from all peoples to really get involved, I think, in STEM education. So I think we'll see more and more of an uptick, but it doesn't allow us off the hook in terms of really promoting more diversity in especially in gender area, and also doing what we can do to attract as many people into STEM as we can, with a healthy dose of liberal arts, of course. And that's how maybe we construct our programs moving forward.
Okay. I think we're losing the voice. Is that just me or somebody else? Hans, you want to jump into the conversation here? You're the liberal arts person.
This is Hans. I find this absolutely fascinating, Nat, and believe me, I will share your presentation globally and not just with the engineering education community. And we work 24/7, but with many of the others. As you know, I've been privileged over the last decade as a political scientist and as an anthropologist to work closely with the and co-lead global engineering education societies, and attempting, and I think quite fruitfully, to link many of our colleagues to other disciplines, and looking, for example, very interesting, our forthcoming conference in Madrid that I'm working with closely, obviously the importance of students and women students is critically important, but other issues that engineers have difficulties talking about, such as mental health and the psychological issues. I just wanted to weave that into the discussions per se. That is critically important. And one of the other things that I've been involved in, as several of you know that have supported this, is the writing of bringing together women engineering leaders globally, and writing different books of their experiences, including India. And many of those women leaders, as I'm learning and reading carefully, have gone beyond simply the field of engineering, but have incorporated many of the concepts, ideas, Nat, that you have articulated. Let me just stop here because I want also to comment. Thank you, Krishna.
Yeah, a couple of comments I'm going to read out and see if they want to talk. Let's see, we have Prafulla from one of the colleges in India, RV College. This question about, she's a professor there. This question is, should liberal arts be pursued separately, or should be part of a broader of a curriculum? But I mean, that's because then during your slides you did talk about the differences in there. What's your thought?
Yeah, liberal arts as liberal arts as an independent existence.
Yeah, as liberal arts, exactly. So people graduating with liberal arts or engineers with a lot of liberal arts education. I mean, or both maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
What I have tried to talk about is the role of liberal arts as a supplement to the STEM subjects. That STEM subjects alone will not produce competent and responsible engineers. You also need, in addition, liberal arts. And that is the point that I'm trying to make. And even the national education policy, in talking about the interdisciplinary nature of university education, but I am relating it more to engineering education, not liberal arts as an independent area, which is outside my area of interest and expertise.
Right. Yeah, but perhaps the more liberal arts audience might argue that we need more just liberal arts degree holders who can change the conversation to more in that direction. But let me go to John Tarakan here from Howard University in the US. John, you want to talk yourself? You have a couple of comments you put up. I've unmuted you.
Thank you, Krishna, and thank you, Dr. Natarajan. And I'm honored to be able to listen to you and completely echo and endorse, what you are sort of stressing here. And I guess in terms of identifying myself, I should also say that I'm a graduate of IIT Madras from BTech 1982. And it's a pleasure to see you again so many decades later, as a professor now of engineering for about 30 years. But I guess my comment here is, and my concern is that engineering education really needs to transform itself so that it is actually more like a liberal education, where we inculcate the 4 C's that you stress in terms of creative thinking, critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. So I just thank you very much, and I'm so glad that Hans is going to share this globally. That's great. So thank you, Krishna, and thank you, Dr. Nand.
Thank you, John. We have several people from industry here, but in particular MathWorks. Sanjay, you want to come in? I've unmuted you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Natarajan, for this great session. Really, really good listening to you. I had one observation. One was really a good take on how you put the soft skills as vital skills. I was really searching my vocabulary to find the right word to use there because I really feel that the soft skills are not very soft as usually people may think. So thanks for that. You said I'll use that in my presentations too. The second observation, which I think probably you alluded to that as an answer to earlier, was if somebody is taking up liberal arts as a mainstream, then how can technology education supplement that? Why I'm asking that question is MathWorks as a company focuses a lot on technologies like AI as of now. And we see that there is a lot of interest in getting people from humanities background, for that matter, in helping build AI systems, because you know that at the highest level there are a lot of conversation about AI ethics and all those things. So I don't know whether you have, or probably Dr. Krishna, if there is some panelists or others in the audience who will have some observations around that, on how we can actually complement liberal arts also with some technology education, so that we are not losing out there. And I think Dr. Natarajan also talked about Bill Gates' quote, where he said that it is good to complement both together.
Yeah. Good. You want to respond to that, Dr. Natarajan?
Yeah, I would like to make 2 points. The first one is that I have been saying over the past few years that it is important for everybody to have a basic technology background, because we're living in a world of technology. We are using technology products and services to such an extent that all of us are forced to learn technology. But unfortunately, in education, in general education, there's not enough inputs of technology into the curricula. People are talking about introducing liberal arts and related subjects into engineering education, but the reverse. In general education, introducing technology and technical education. That is not happening as much, and people have to learn on their own, or self-learning, or some supplementary, through some other agencies. But in education itself, I have been saying that we should have technology in components introduced into general education. The second point is that when we are talking about innovation and both product and process and services and so on, it is generally felt that you need inputs from humanities and social sciences in order to make them more human, enabling more human-related issues, convenience for humans, enabling humans to do better in innovation, for instance. So in these two areas, I believe there are some changes which need to be made.
Okay. Thank you, Sanjay, and thank you, Dr. Natarajan. There are several questions here related to the new education policy that is being declared in India, that we should move more towards the kinds of things that you're talking about, Dr. Natarajan, where liberal arts is more important and becomes an important part of all the universities. And you did mention that IITs are strong liberal arts departments, but where do you see them going in view of the new education policies, and also how do you see the other institutions that are not IITs, and how to see what kind of changes do you think they will start making or be able to make in this direction of introducing liberal arts, whether you're talking about private universities or affiliated institutions which are strongly technical oriented. You might want to just general comments in that along that direction.
Yeah, I'd like to make 2 points here. One is the private donors who come together, crowdfunding and starting new institutions. Their heart seems to be in favor of liberal arts institution. As I pointed out, many universities that I have indicated, they're all promoted by private donors, millionaires, and so on, who have succeeded in their lives. And at this point of time, they feel that they need to support liberal arts education, maybe because the governments are supporting STEM education in a big way. As I pointed out again, there are many STEM institutions, STEM education institutions, which have been started by the central government, the IITs, the NIT, the IIITs, and also IIMs and so on, more profession-oriented. So for some reason or the other, it is the private sector which has come in to play a big role. I believe it is because they have succeeded in their lives, and they feel that in addition to technology at the higher levels, they need liberal arts as a supplement in order to for the national economy to succeed, for the general ecosystem to succeed. And that is the reason I believe they are doing that. But if you look at a parent or a student who is interested in entering education, the first thing that comes to his mind is employability. What do I do at the end of my education? They're not looking at master's degrees and PhDs. It's just much smaller in number in any case. So as the employability areas change, as we are talking about AI and ML and things like that, they're trying to offer degrees, even bachelor's degrees in these areas. Is that the right thing to do? The national education policy, the buzzword, as I pointed out, is interdisciplinarity and multidisciplinarity. They would like to have the existing independent colleges, autonomous colleges, to coalesce into larger universities with multidisciplines. I'm not so sure if it is practicable. When you make changes, if they are disruptive changes, it becomes very difficult to implement the changes. At the moment, the implementation strategies, I don't believe, are explicit, and people are struggling to relate to the new education policy demands. So it will take some time. many discussions are taking place, and in my opinion, many discussions are not also taking place. For example, mathematics and physics are no longer compulsory for entry into engineering education according to the policy. I believe that it is an ill-advised step, and I've written an article about it. But the new education policy cannot be a disruptive policy. There must be a smooth transition from what we have now to what we want to have in the future. That is my belief.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's interesting that you pointed out that several of these universities, like Ashoka University and others, that are focusing more on the liberal arts. But still, there are many other private universities like the BML Munjal University and others, which are much more technically oriented. We have one faculty member, but I'm not sure if she's ready to speak. Nandita, would you like to ask her one question?
Yeah, actually, thank you, Krishna. So good evening, Professor Natarajan. I am a faculty from BMU and I come from the liberal arts background myself. So one aspect that we have seen in our students, engineering students, is that the relative lack of interest for the subjects. We do offer particular skills and perspective courses in liberal arts, but it's only in the final year when the placements are around the corner or when they have their final project presentations, then they become interested in pursuing these courses. So if we are to integrate liberal arts education right from the first year itself, what do you think? Will the students now, I think there needs to be an orientation for the students also. This will be a drastic change. So are students ready for that? And I'm speaking for all those engineering institutions which are outside the IITs, NITs, or the triple ITs.
Let me point out that even when we teach science subjects, for example, if you show them applications related to the branch of engineering that he will be preparing for, then the interest, you're able to interest the students. Similarly, again, I think integration of liberal arts into the engineering area so that they can see the application of what they are learning in liberal arts into the profession that they are moving into, then they will show some interest. As an abstract idea, it is difficult to interest them in something that they will not be practicing in the future.
Right. Yes, yes, we have to be prepared for that. So we'll have to work on this.
Right. Thank you, Nandita. Let's go back to Hans Feuer to close the session. We're running out of time. Hans,
thank you, kindly Krishna. Dr. Natarajan, it's a real pleasure, honor to have you, and I very much appreciate, Krishna, you mentioning the journey that you were the catalyst of in 14 years ago, and Dr. Natarajan supported you and myself in this effort to bring the community together through IUCE. So the fact that we are still connected and he's continuing to have the kind of intellectual strategic impact globally is just remarkable. The other point I just wanted to say is I want to encourage all of you to please connect with us to join us this November virtually. It'll be difficult for us to travel to Madrid, where we bring together not only professors and our friends in the industrial world and what have you, but an important dimension for us is the student engagement. We work with some remarkable student leaders that we encourage, work with them, and also learn from them, per se. So I just wanted to, mention and write to us if you have any questions in any way that we can be of great support. Dr. Natarajan, many thanks for your very, very thoughtful presentation, which indeed we will share globally. Krishna, thank you kindly.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hans, and thank you, Dr. Natarajan. You are truly the guru of education in India. So thanks everybody for joining us in this conversation, and everybody be happy, be safe, and be healthy. Jai Ho.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Bye-bye. Peace be with you.
Bye. Bye-bye.